One of the big mistakes is lack of preparation. One of the most critical things to do in a family law or any legal matter is to be prepared and have all of that documents in order. You're really giving all of your testimony in the form of an affidavit. It's crucial to be prepared, to make sure that you've spent the time adequately ensuring that what you've put forward to the court is watertight. It's the truth and there's no mistakes.
Welcome to Divorce Down Under, the Aussie way, where a regular guy like me, Matt, will help you navigate a fresh start following a divorce. After experiencing a divorce and going through all sorts of emotions, I hope to bring you the right tools and advice so you can set up a better life after divorce. Hear from experts and people like you who have lived it, sharing insights so you may find peace in a new beginning. Hi everyone, welcome back to Divorce Down Under, and welcome back again, Luke.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Good to be here as always.
Yeah, great to have you again. And we'll get the boring stuff out of the way, but before we get underway, I wanted to remind the viewers that, this show is for general advice only. It doesn't take into consideration your personal situation and is not really intended to, or it's not intended to be relied upon. And any financial or legal decision should only occur after you have received tailored advice from a legal or financial professional like Luke.
Thank you, Matt. How's your week going so far?
Not too bad. You reminded me, we've got some tennis that we're playing in groups, and mind you, I'm in the bottom of the groups, and I'll admit you're at the top half. I haven't started my group of tennis, so I'm looking forward to it actually.
Yeah. I think tennis is one of those sports where it doesn't matter what level you are, it's fun. It's fun. Although the higher I found that the higher level that I get, and I'm a bit of a competitive soul, fortunately and unfortunately. But the higher you get in tennis, the higher the lows. The lower the lows and the higher the highs. Become. It's one of those sports where it can be, you can step off the court and be elated or absolutely devastated in your performance.
Yeah, I agree. But it is always better to be winning though.
Oh yeah. It'd be great if you could just tell your brain how to react in the right moments, and believe me, I'm working on it.
At least we're all having a go, though. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah,
and good exercise as well.
Yeah, I actually do it with my daughter a lot too, and I know you do as well. It's that's where it's really fun. I enjoy that sort of aspect of it.
Yeah, it's great for a lot of reasons, I suppose.
Yeah, and you can do it at such an old age. So yeah, It is. Okay, let's jump in. So today you've got an interesting one. We're going to talk about, the family court, appearing in family court, and, maybe touch on some of the mistakes you need to be aware of that, you probably see made time and time again. So I look forward to sort of diving a bit deeper on that. But like always, I'm going to ask you another thing, and you caught me off guard in our last episode, and I asked you to provide something that we don't know, or at least share something with the viewers that they don't know about you. And you mentioned in the last episode it was Cub Scout, and that was something I didn't know about you. So I'm looking forward to this one. What don't we know about Luke?
Well, what a lot of people don't know is that I didn't know what I was going to do after high school. I worked for a few years, and then I sort of went on a bit of an overseas trek to find my independence, and I went through England and Europe, and then on the way back I went to Thailand, and I was on the beach almost at the end of my journey. I think I had a few nights left, and I was just watching the sun set at the beach and pondering what I was going to do with myself when I got back to Australia. And so I did a bit of a SWOT analysis and looked at my strengths and weaknesses, and I worked out that I like to argue the toss about everything. At that stage, I've mellowed a lot since then, and I was quite analytical as well, and still am, probably to a fault. But yeah, I worked out that my personality, my strengths, sort of led me toward a career in law. So I went and enrolled in law when I got back to Australia. So yeah, that's something that you may not have known about me, or some of the viewers at least.
No, there you go. And where were you traveling at the time?
I had just come back from traveling through England and all throughout Western Europe, and then Thailand after that.
Oh, nice. It's good, those sorts of travels, isn't it? I worked in the Middle East and Abu Dhabi and London and did all that similar thing that you have. And yeah, it was good fun those days.
Yeah, yeah. I remember actually hearing all of the stories that if you go on a train, an overnight train, you had to be very careful because in those days, a lot of the gypsies were putting gas throughout some of the carriages, to sleeping gas, so that you'd sleep heavily while they came through and took all of your belongings. So thankfully, I didn't have any of those sorts of experiences, but I did get pickpocketed in Rome, which was with someone right next to me on a busy subway. So that was a bit of an experience as well. So one of the beauties of travel, I love it. Going through, seeing different places, different cultures, meeting different pickpockets.
It rounds you as a person, doesn't it? It makes you realize what we have in Australia, well, in my eyes. Um,
Yeah, definitely.
we're,
Yeah,
we're very lucky. And I think it's easy to be on this big island that's called Australia and forget about the rest of the world and not realize, you know, what we have here. Um,
yeah. You can take it for granted until you go and live or travel somewhere else, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, definitely. It rounds us as individuals. Well, it has me anyway.
Mm, mm,
Well, thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate that.
mm.
um,
Pleasure.
let's dive in because I know you got things to do straight after this. But so from a family law court perspective, are there mistakes that you see time and time again, or anything that we should be aware of when it comes to appearing in family court? And obviously, then we'll touch a bit more on the different levels of courts that we may experience.
I think probably one of the big mistakes is, and you shouldn't really have this if you've got a lawyer, but not everyone has a lawyer, is lack of preparation. So you really need to have all of your ducks in a row, so to speak. It's one of the most critical things to do in a family law or any legal matter is to be prepared and have all of that. The documents in order, have all of the testimony, in the family courts, it's an affidavit jurisdiction, so you're really giving all of your testimony in the form of an affidavit, and then at the final hearing, you're being cross-examined in the witness box as to any inconsistencies in the affidavit material. So it's crucial to be prepared, to make sure that you've spent the time adequately ensuring that what you've put forward to the court is watertight. It's the truth, and there's no mistakes contained within it. Because if you're not paying attention when you're going through and preparing documents, and even if it's just a small slip up, a mistake that's in the documents, it can have the impact of making you look less credible in the court's eyes, and it sees some pretty nasty people on a daily basis who just flat out lie to them. And so what can happen, rightly or wrongly, is that the courts can form a view that a deponent or a witness in any court proceedings, if they've made a mistake and they said something which doesn't quite gel with the truth, is inferred as being a deliberate mistruth, or have
Yeah.
lied to the court. So it is quite important. Yeah.
And I think, and look, you mentioned it shouldn't mistakes shouldn't happen when you're with a lawyer and so forth. But I think that's a good example what you just gave there. There's only so much a lawyer can actually tell another person, and they're not in your circumstances or haven't been in your circumstances, and that if you're lying and telling incorrect, submitting incorrect affidavits, that's not going to serve you well in any way for the courts. um, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, and then also, of course, emotions run high in family law matters. So that's another thing to be aware of. Some of the mistakes I see is, if you can't control your emotions, then sometimes that can be used against you. So it's important, I suppose, to make sure that you are um, emotionally regulating correctly. And if you need help, then there's plenty of counsellors and things out, and people like that, psychologists who can help you along the way. It can be a traumatic experience, and there's no shame in getting help from a counsellor to talk through some of the feelings that you're going through when you go through these family law matters, particularly in the litigation phase. It just becomes quite a pressure cooker of a situation for a lot of people. Another thing, you want to make sure, if there are orders, interim orders being made by the court, that you're adhering to those. Not adhering to those can be a big mistake. And also, I suppose, if you do have a lawyer, making sure that you communicate clearly with them. Regular communication is key. If they ask for something, ask for a document, ask for you to put together some information. Some people just bury their head in the sand. They don't want to deal with it, and that's a mistake as well. So you need to communicate. That's another good point to remember if you're going through this awful, or sometimes awful, process.
Yeah, and it's not easy, sort of wanting to deal with it, especially if you've got 30 plus pages of affidavit replies, and you need to sit down um, and have a reply to whatever it is that's been written in those documents. But something that doesn't need to be done is, just because someone's replied with 30 pages in one affidavit doesn't
Mm.
always mean, and this is where I found you were really good, doesn't necessarily mean you have to reply with 30 pages back. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a really good point. I think that it's not uncommon at all for affidavits to be prepared and then served on the other party, and for our clients to receive those and be somewhat in disbelief about some of the allegations that get made. And it's a lot of it is a mudslinging exercise, and it brings out the worst in some people. So I think that it's key to communicate with your lawyer about what's important in that spray, that mudslinging spray, and how to deal with it, instead of just and it's easier said than done, I know, but if you can avoid the temptation to just devolve into a mudslinging contest, and that can be greatly assisted by speaking with your lawyer about what's important and what needs to be addressed and what doesn't need to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. Because it can get out of hand with just replies after replies, and um, this is where it's important to find a lawyer that has good experience in seeing those sorts of replies. Because I would imagine that if you're going to reply back with a 30 page yourself, and it's not necessary, that's going to cost as well. That's going to cost you a lot of time
Yeah,
and money.
and it doesn't short circuit the situation. It just keeps the circle going around and around, and it becomes a vicious circle,
Yeah.
and a costly one as well.
Yeah, and it becomes entwined in your head, and it just becomes really stressful. And you're not focused on the things that you should be. You're focusing on the things you generally can't change because it's going to court. But you can change in the sense how you reply to those. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're picturing it as a diagram and there's a circle and you're just spinning around and round, and your better future is sitting up here above the circle, you're not getting to that point because all you're doing is going around and round and round, and you really need to set your mind and have someone to help you to fix your mind on the end game, on the outcome, where you get out of this litigation phase and you get the result. Um, and it's hard to as well, I think, for a lot of clients, because this is someone that they're separating from, that they've been intimately involved with for a significant period of time, and ending the litigation phase and that vicious cycle means saying goodbye in some sense to that
Yeah.
person, and that's difficult sometimes to. I mean, I've had a lot of clients, not just a few, a lot of clients who we we negotiate and get to a point where we've got fantastic terms of settlement, and then when it comes time to sign them, there's something that's holding them back. They're not ready yet to go into that next phase. So I think that the sooner you can start to imagine life in the next phase of your life, um, the easier it is to let go of the old one.
Yeah.
So
I've,
you can't pull your foot out of the old boat and into the new boat unless you've already imagined what the new boat's going to look like.
Yeah, yeah. I never heard you explain it like that before with the circle analogy. And if you're stuck in that circle, it's so true. And straight away, I got that, and it makes me think, okay, if you want to stay where you are, keep with those on, aggressive replies, lengthy replies, um, and you're going to stay there. But if you don't focus on that future, which is outside of that circle, then that's where you'll stay. So it's a
Mm.
good example.
Yeah, and then in terms of the courts, the different court structures, you've got the magistrates court, and that in a family law space, that primarily deals with protection orders and domestic violence allegations, but it does have the jurisdiction to also deal with less complex family law matters, including divorce applications and property splits. And then you've got, of course, the what was the Family Court of Australia and the Federal Circuit Court now combining to form the Federal Circuit and Family Court, broken into two divisions for complex matters and in Division One, and less complex matters in Division Two. I don't know what the percentage is, but the large bulk of Australian family law matters are being dealt with in Division Two, and and then and that's the old Federal Magistrates Court, come Federal Circuit Court, come Division Two of the Federal Circuit and Family Court of Australia. So that's really, I suppose, two courts in one there, as well as the state magistrates court for those other things.
Yeah, excellent. And you touched briefly. So there's generally speaking two main hearings: interim and final hearings.
Yeah, that's right. So final hearings, unsurprisingly, is where you've got to a point where probably after a significant amount of time and money and emotional cost, you get to a point where you've had a trial or a final hearing, and the distinction between that, other than the fact that it's the last one and a decision is going to be made on a final basis after that hearing, but the distinction between the final hearing and interim hearings prior is that there's no cross examination, generally speaking, until you get to the final hearing. So, what happens prior to the final hearing at all of the interim hearings is that um, parties are just submitting affidavits, and so the judge or the judicial registrar has before him or her two competing written arguments, basically, two different versions of events, and then they're making a decision based on that. And then you still have the same sort of thing in the final hearing, except that each party has the opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses in the witness box. So they put the person who's created and filed an affidavit in the witness box, and the lawyer then asks them questions and tries to find holes in their story, I suppose, to make them look to the court to be a less credible witness.
Yeah, no stone is unturned.
Yeah. And then the other thing to bear in mind in terms of interim hearings is that, and this is a cause for frustration for a lot of our clients, and a lot of family law litigants all over Australia, is that apart from the litigation phase taking a really long time, there's not a lot of time dedicated by the court to, well, in the perspective from clients who are going through this process, I hear it time and again, they're not happy with how much time they're getting, how much airplay they're getting in the courts. So they put so much importance on an interim hearing, and then they turn up, they appear, and it's over within a flash typically. And the judicial officer is typically pretty scathing of both parties as well. And so it's an unpleasant experience for the parties. And the courts have an immense workload, and they're trying to get through these matters as quickly as possible. And that leaves litigants with the feeling that their matter wasn't important enough to be given enough airplay. So it's just, I think, a really unpleasant experience for a lot of people, and that's why it's important to. And I know mediation doesn't solve everyone's problems, but that's where you should be trying to solve your problems if you can, rather than trying to get a decision from a court who 9 times out of 10 on an interim basis doesn't have the time to adequately investigate all of the allegations being made by each of the parties, and a lot of the time is bound in some sense to maintaining the status quo. So if a parenting arrangement means that the mother has had the children for a significant period of time and the father's seeing the children periodically, the court's unlikely to disturb that. In most cases, not all, but in most cases.
Yeah, and in reality, the courts don't want you there anyway. They want you to deal with work out your matters on your own.
Yeah, for sure. There's been increasingly a push by the courts to alternative dispute resolution.
Yeah.
And you can understand why, when the courts are so busy, they want parties to work out their own differences where possible.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Thank you, Luke. I know you got to zip off and go and do other important things today, so I'm going to let you go. But I appreciate your time again today, Luke, and sharing your insights and your knowledge. It's extremely valuable to everyone that watches, so thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks, Matt, for having me on here, and have a great week ahead.
You too. Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Matt. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Divorce Down Under, the Aussie Way, helping you navigate a fresh start after divorce. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a review from wherever you are watching or listening, and don't forget to share this with your friends. Also, let us know what you want to hear in future episodes. See you next time for a new episode of Divorce Down Under.